Has the Smithsonian Institution gone woke? It is the latest outrage in the never-ending outrage cycle in Washington, D.C. But man, the director of the Smithsonian was in front of Congress, what was it, yesterday? Answering questions, or should I say not answering questions, about the leftward lurch of the Smithsonian institutions and the way that it is presenting American history. And Republicans were outraged. And this all comes in the context of cultural transformation of the United States seemingly before our eyes as MAGA power gradually dwindles and the rise of the great socialists carries up in earnest, with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Zoran Mamdani, and this general red wave seems to be overtaking everything in this country right now as people demanding more stuff, more health care, cheaper housing, more everything under the sun. A great clamor for government to seize the means of production everywhere and to take over, and it seems increasingly inevitable that this is the direction the country's going to go, at least for a while, maybe forever. Socialism is alive and permanent in Europe. Why not here in the United States too? Seems like it is finally having its day. Well, in the meantime, we've got culture wars to fight here in Washington, culture wars to dissect. I thought I would share some of my thoughts about the Smithsonian here as we wander around the different Smithsonian museums one by one here on a little walk tonight, live on the streets of DC. As you can see, they are still cleaning up, I guess slowly taking down bits and pieces of what was the Great American State Fair. I guess the fencing is still mostly up. The Ferris wheel is now down, but the National Mall is still all cluttered up by, well, you can see porta potties and fencing and other things that are remnants from that fair. And DC will get no respite here, because the second they take this stuff down, they're going to start setting up for the big, what is it, IndyCar Formula One race that's going to happen in DC on August 23rd. I have heard that as of July 26th, they are going to start shutting down streets to prepare for that. So, man, this has been a never-ending summer of kind of a whole year of DC just being exhausted and kind of brutalized from the setups and all this stuff, from all this crap. And man, it has been exhausting. It's been exhausting being in this city for that whole duration. So we'll see what happens. I don't know how long it's going to take them to continue dissecting the bits and pieces of this state fair that was only open for 2 weeks itself, even at its peak. And yet it took them months to put it up. It seems it's going to take them months to take it down here. It's now already been a couple of weeks since the thing closed. And I don't know, maybe we can, yeah, it looks like we still can't quite yet really walk across the actual National Mall. I miss those days when we could actually explore the public spaces of Washington, D.C. on these late night streams. I don't know, now it seems like we can't anymore, and I've been kind of petrified to go out into the streets of this city because, well, there's nowhere to go. Everything is blocked off. The reflecting pool is back to being blocked off. The contract for the reflecting pool contractor is going to go into 2027. So the reflecting pool, who knows if that will ever rematerialize. The fair seems to have eaten up the entire rest of the mall, and I don't know if it will ever go away. Now the streets are going to be blocked off. Freedom Plaza's been blocked off. The White House area is completely blocked off, including Pennsylvania Avenue, Lafayette Square. Everywhere there's nowhere to go in Washington, D.C. right now. It is a city occupied by construction and mantling and dismantling and things of that sort. So, anytime there are congressional hearings here in Washington, D.C., and by the way, guys, it's good to see you here. Jeanette, Jerry Carter, and Nightbot. I'm surprising you guys a little bit. early out of the gate. Of course, it's been like a week since we streamed, so that's probably a little surprising to begin with. But then I'm out a little bit at a different hour than I normally am. So hopefully people will wander on in here at their leisure. We'll try to be out here for at least as long as it takes to see some of these Smithsonian museums. And I don't know how that's going to all play out here, but we're going to do our best. So yeah, if you guys wouldn't mind dropping a like and subscribing to the videos, we're out of the gate. I appreciate that. Those likes help us out with YouTube. The subscribes help you guys know when we're on. Check our description for the link to our Discord, which is our 24/7 chat platform, and our Duck Fund, which is our Buy Me a Coffee link, as well as the link to our sister channel, Land Ducks International, where you can see raw footage of raw stuff from around the world. People are mad, says Jerry Carter. Security and safety are where all the rules live. If you are in charge of security or safety, you get to set lots and lots and lots of rules, and nobody can really bicker with them. If you say something is making people safer or making people more secure, who's going to say no to that? Everybody wants more safety, more security. It's one of the few bipartisan things out there. Everybody wants people to be safe and secure, and protecting people is very, very, very important. And so the fact that those are the places where you can basically have free reign to make virtually unlimited rules induce people to join the security brigade. People who really like power join the safety and security brigade. And so I suppose there are bad actors in Washington, D.C., as there might be anywhere else. People that might wish to do ill on the city, onto its politicians, onto its spaces. People like don't like America anymore. They decided they should get out there with, whatever instruments of terror that they want to go out there with and tear apart this great country of ours. I don't know, whatever they're doing. But you got to live with a little bit of risk. Like, when you try to build an infinite security state, it paralyzes everything. And that's what DC has been living in of late. And it is not so nice. All right. So we are here at the first of the Smithsonian museums, and I figured I would just take a little loop around walking to some of these tonight. This is petrified wood. And I guess when wood gets petrified, apparently it gets very, very, very hard. And I guess people really like hard wood. So, I don't know, I don't know if you're allowed to touch the hard wood. Or is it too petrified? No, it looks like it's too petrified. It's too far away. I can't reach the hard wood. So, this is the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. So, anytime you have a congressional hearing about basically any topic, it's a bit of a political show. The Congress people aren't there to really actually learn anything from the witnesses. So they'll call somebody up to Congress and they'll have them like sit there at a dais or at a table, and then the Congress people get up there, and 5 minutes at a time they go up and they ask them questions to, well, in theory, you're supposed to invite witnesses that the Congress can learn things from to inform future legislation. That's the idea when you have congressional witnesses. The Congress calls people in front of the Congress to either learn things about what they do, to inform the expertise of Congress, or in some cases to learn about bad actors, and Congress can ensuingly take action. But congressional hearings have increasingly turned into a bit of a farce over time, and none of it's really all that authentic. When Congress calls witnesses to testify in front of Congress these days, they're not really calling them there because they want to ask questions and learn things from them. They're usually calling them there because they want to conduct some kind of political show trial of a sort. And that basically is what has happened the last couple days, I guess, with the Smithsonian director up on Capitol Hill here in Washington, been testifying about the nature of the Smithsonian museums and their leftward lurch and her leftward ideology and those kinds of things. Republicans grilled her very, very, very extensively about some of her clearly quite awful beliefs. I mean, she clearly does not believe that the Smithsonian Museum is there to tell the story of American history. She clearly believes it's there to be like an activist thing. There's not a lot of question about that. But, you know, it's always a bit of a show trial. So you got to take that into account when somebody's up there testifying on Capitol Hill. I have no idea what the hell is going on in this chat right now, guys. Somebody's got to fill me in on what exactly the bantering is about. Anyway, good to have you guys with us. Good to see you, Religionac. So this is the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History, which was one of the very earliest of the actual Smithsonian museums. So the story of the Smithsonian is actually, like, it's kind of a crazy story in American history. Like, it was not something that the founding fathers came up with to have like a big museum for the country. Like, that was never some like grand plan that Thomas Jefferson or George Washington or somebody came up with. There was no plan to have the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian basically happened by happenstance. There was this English guy named Smithson, who eventually became the Smithson in Smithsonian. He was from England. He lived in Italy. His entire life, he never came to the United States. Never once came to the United States. But he was somebody very passionate about learning, about science, about topics like that. And he basically died without an heir. And he had in his will that if he died without an heir, that he wanted all of his fortune to be donated to the United States for the purpose of expanding learning and knowledge in the United States. And it was very cryptic. Nobody really knew what it meant. He didn't specify build a museum. All anybody knew was that he really, really was passionate about people learning, especially about the sciences, about natural history, about medicine, such as it was. This was like 1829 or something. He was just he really wanted this. He wanted his fortune to go toward educating the world about like really rigorous scientific pursuits. And this basically landed on Andrew Jackson's desk in the 1830s. It took like 5 or 6 years for them to figure out what to do with this bequeathment in this guy's will. And this landed on Andrew Jackson's desk, that this giant fortune worth about like $500 million in present day money was being donated to the United States, and the U.S. had to figure out what to do with it. And it took the U.S. like 15 years. It was the Polk administration eventually that figured out that to like build the first vestiges of the Smithsonian institution. And so they built the Smithsonian Castle with the intent of housing this guy Smithson's like personal science artifacts collection. And that was how the Smithsonian got started. It was, and like, frankly, when you read about the history of the Smithsonian, it makes it all the more appalling what they've done with it today. But this was really intended to be like a rigorous scientific institution. And so the early collections of the Smithsonian were basically entirely about like science natural history, healthcare, things like that. Like really the hard sciences. And so they had the castle, which is called the Arts and Industries Building originally. They eventually grew out of that. And part of the reason they grew out of that building was that the 1876 Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia, which was like, that was when we cared about that was when we really cared about our anniversary and the betterment of our country. That produced a whole bunch of things, like really impressive scientific discoveries and the showcase of American innovation and ingenuity. That was all bequeathed to the Smithsonian in the aftermath of the 1876 Centennial Exposition. And suddenly the Smithsonian collection was growing a lot. But it was all about the sciences. And part of the reason Smithson had selected the United States, a country he had never been to, in order to build the Smithsonian Institution, was he respected the United States in a way he didn't respect England or Italy, to do something rigorous and scientific with his request. Because he thought the United States, that's a country that's really doing something. They still have the innovators, like really creative, rigorous, academic, thoughtful people that really can like go and invent and create amazing things. And so he bequeathed this collection, and it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew. And then over time, various really rich people decided to donate various art collections to the Smithsonian. And so over time, you built a bigger and bigger collection. You had a collection of American and Asian art that was donated. You had what became the Sackler Gallery, this art collection. This museum, which is the National Museum of American History, did not start out that way. This started out as like, it was like arts and sciences, or it was something different, much less about history, much more about science. And it didn't become a history museum until much later. The Smithsonian museums have gotten a lot softer over time. We've built, and now all the Smithsonian leadership cares about is like race and gender, and building more museums to more of little racial division categories. The last Smithsonian museums to open were the Smithsonian Museum of the American Indian and the Smithsonian Museum of African American History. They're now planning to build the Smithsonian Museum of Latino History and the Smithsonian Museum of Women's History. So that seems to be all the Smithsonian cares about these days, which definitely is in defiance of the original mandate of the Smithsonian, which was really to be about the hard sciences. There's the Washington Monument with a big rift in it. Calming the chaos, it's good to see you. It's been a minute. Thanks for stopping by here on Land Speculation on YouTube, and thank you for sending us a cat. I don't know what I'm going to do with a cat. All right. This is the museum that seems to be getting the most ire. And the Smithsonian leadership seems to have done a fair bit of whitewashing of the historical story of America, retelling the story of the founders as just one big dump load of stories of just how shitty everything American is. How the founding fathers were shitty people, and America's a shitty place, and the only great people in American history are the activists and the protesters and the people that try to tear everything down all the time, and the people that vote 10 times every election, because the only way to make any change in this shitty country is to vote. There's nothing else you can do to ever make any change in any capacity of life other than vote, protest, vote. It is tiresome the way that this museum tells American history. And the congressional testimony over the last few days asked a lot of questions about very questionable characterizations of America's founding fathers and other figures in American history, which are almost always painted in the very worst possible light they can, without really very much emphasis at all on the countervailing positive qualities, nor the context of the time that would have perhaps put some of their less admirable qualities in a temporal sense, like something that would actually help people understand where those people came from and what their world was like at the time that they lived and some of the barriers they were facing and the things they overcome and the things the country overcame at that time. My bigger critique with this museum, which again is the Smithsonian Museum of American History, is it's just a crappy museum. This museum is chock full of 8th grade school groups that come here as part of their civics curriculum. A lot of people take that trip in middle school, or I guess in some cases high school. But it seems like a lot of middle schoolers. Whenever I'm walking around DC in the spring or the fall, it seems like the National Mall is just completely full of like middle schoolers, like 8th graders. And this museum in particular, when you go into it, is just absolutely chock full of kids about that age, wandering the various exhibits. And I find it quite a shame, because one would think that a museum to American history could be like an incredibly inspiring, cool museum. And yet, this museum is terrible. I have ranted about this museum multiple times on this stream in the past. This is a museum of just bad exhibits. And you can take the partisanship out of it. You can take, the wokeness out of it. It's still a bad museum. It does a very, very, very poor job telling the history of America, either accurately, in a balanced proportion, or in any way that would be interesting to any viewer. It's not just that they tell the stories poorly. It's that the exhibits, basically, they look like you just took like your civics textbook from 8th grade and you like ripped out the pages and you just pasted them all over the internet. Or you just paste them all over the walls. Like, it is really boring. Everything's in very small fonts, very small little pictures. There's nothing engaging. There's nothing inspiring. It's just a really, really, really poorly done museum. That doesn't, it feels like it's very out of date. It feels like nobody with any like contemporary creativity was involved in curating it. It's just a bad museum. It's also bad because the exhibits exist in these like weird proportions with really no relationship to the actual impact on American history. So there's like maybe like one panel, 2 panels maybe, like small little vertical panels that talk about the entire history of the Civil War. And yet there's like exhibit after exhibit after exhibit after exhibit with these generic names like "We the People," "The People Are One," "Every Vote Counts." These like generic pablum, like get out the vote kind of just sad, like lowest common denominator exhibits about how great voting and protesting is. It is very clear that the people curating exhibits in the American History Museum like have an extremely, not just like an activist orientation, but like their whole set of priorities about what matters in the country is very skewed toward voting and protesting. I won't go off on my soapbox about how I think there desperately needs to be a Smithsonian museum to like American entrepreneurship or American business, the actual engine that has built this incredible country into the most prosperous country in the history of the world. There's an endless slew of exhibits about how great it is that all these activist groups have protested every little thing under the sun ad infinitum. Like if you were an 8th grader going through this museum, you would think that the only thing that's special about America is that people protest. And the only way that you can make any difference in the country is to protest. And that's if you had the patience to sit around reading the exhibits, which are really boring. They're tiny font, like they're like little science fair boards. There's nothing big, impressive, inspiring. Like you think the American history, the kind of exhibits you could put together on American history, like to start, like imagine you could start with like Omnimax videos of what it was like to be on these boats getting tossed around the Atlantic Ocean, these incredibly brave people fleeing religious persecution in Europe, daring to come and settle on this continent, showing up on our shores, toiling and struggling through the early winters on this continent, figuring out what it took to set up a civilization from scratch, gradually growing communities, territories, colonies, fighting a revolutionary war against then the most powerful military in the entire world, drafting these incredible landmark documents that changed the course of history, not just for this country, but for the entire world, the Declaration and the Constitution. The gradual formation of the institutions of this country, the norms, the principles, the protocols of what it meant to set up a government, this incredible nation of small farmers that grew into this incredibly dynamic and diverse economy, one step at a time, becoming the world's mighty power, the might of industrialization that grew in this country, the automobile, the growth of the freight network around this country, the continued colonization of its territories, Lewis and Clark, the Louisiana Purchase, the settling of its lands, the growing of farmsteads, the founding of companies, the discovering of oil, the gradual growth of these titanic empires as America's economy grew and grew and grew and grew, and over the course of the 19th century overtook the economies of France and England and became the most powerful economy in the entire world. The terrible struggle we fought through to figure out our destiny in the Civil War, the growth of American industry in the back half of the 19th century, which was unprecedented in world history. The transformation of America into the 20th century, the rapid growth of this incredibly dynamic country and the formulation of these incredibly dynamic city centers like Chicago and New York, Philadelphia, Boston, Detroit, these incredible industrial powerhouses, the formation of these incredible national pastimes like baseball and football, the birth of the airplane, aviation, the interstate highway system, the multiple world wars that America fought and won on behalf of our allies around the world and all the toil and struggle that went into those. The struggle to overcome the Dust Bowl, the Great Depression, and the big government ballooning of FDR, the country's resilience to overcome those things, and then fight another world war, and then go through the 30 most prosperous years of any superpower in world history. The incredible culture of Americana that was formed, the birth of these incredible institutions, fast food restaurants, things like McDonald's that changed the world, the growth of mega corporations, the birth and growth of our space program, the landing on the moon, the incredible resurgence of America's economy in the 1980s, the toppling of the Soviet Union, the toppling of communism and socialism in the 20th century, led by the United States of America, the exporting of our culture around the world, the incredible tragedy of 9/11 and the way that America rose resiliently and overcame that, our ability to overcome great toils and perils like the financial crisis of 2008, and the enduring spirit of this incredible country, the incredible heroic people that settled it, fought through the wilderness, who conquered the Native Americans who were here, who built incredible cities and civilizations and invented things with incredible amounts of bravery and entrepreneurship and innovation. You could tell any of those stories through any incredible, dynamic version of exhibits and things like that. And it doesn't do any of that. It's like the most boring history textbook you could come up with. Not to mention the fact that it's written by these like gratuitous political activists who think that race and gender are the only things in the world that matter for any reason whatsoever. It's a bad museum. I mean, it's a bad museum. And I would have told you that long before these hearings. And in fact, I've said I've been railing against it on this channel for a while now. It's extremely disappointing. Anyway, it's good to see you guys. Thanks for stopping by here on Land Speculation on YouTube. Jerry, George, Jeanette, Michael, Valiginat, Calming the Chaos, Spyman. Let's see. Who else we got? As I scroll back here. Quiet Castle, good to see you. Conspiratary, I think. Good to see you as well. Let's see, who else we got here in the chat? So, we've been taking just a little bit of a walk here around the Smithsonian. Of course, this has been majorly in the news the last few days because of the congressional hearings in which the head of the Smithsonian was called to testify before Congress and was asked, admittedly a whole bunch of politically loaded questions, but refused to answer even really a single one. Republicans believe that the Smithsonian has been turned into basically a woke activist agenda center. We spent a few minutes earlier on the stream talking about the history of the Smithsonian, which is actually a very interesting and surprising story if you've never heard it. So scroll back in the video if you want to hear the story about Smithson and the way the Smithsonian was started, which was with the intent to make it a really, really scholarly museum about learning about science and industry. That was really the intent. This would be a museum about science and industry, the natural histories, these great sciences of the 19th century. That was really the intent when the Smithsonian opened. It was never intended to be a museum about racial grievance or about voting, about any of this crap. It was intended to be a museum of science and industry. That was really the wish of the guy that bequeathed the original collection. It has grown. Of course, it is. I was debating a little bit with AI about it earlier today, and I think you could make a claim, pretty reasonable claim, that the Smithsonian, as a complete collection of museums, is the greatest collective museum of any museum in the world. Although, having been to the British Museum in London, that is a pretty darn incredible museum. So I don't know if I would necessarily put this above that, but the Smithsonian has a lot of different museums, and that's part of what makes it special. Most of them grew out of that original collection, the overflow of the Centennial Exposition of 1876, which produced a lot of stuff, and then various bequeathments of art collections from rich people from across the United States. And then only recently did the Smithsonian get kind of hijacked by grievance activists, let's call them, who have basically caused its focus to be almost unilaterally on the storytelling of activist agenda stuff. Again, the last couple Smithsonian museums that opened were the Museum of the American Indian, the African American History Museum, which is the museum that's right there. And the next two planned museums are the Latino Museum and the Museum of Women. So you can see the change in emphasis from the original museums, which were about arts and industry, natural history, science, art. There's a very, very clean cutoff line in what the Smithsonian has gradually become. And it is a much, much less rigorous set of museums than it used to be at its founding. And my critique, as much as my critique is basically in concurrence with the critics who claim it has gone kind of woke, is just that for an incredible collection of museums, they're pretty poorly curated. They're very large buildings. They get a lot of prominence on the National Mall, but a lot of them kind of suck for what they are. I mean, they're still great museums. They still got a lot of stuff, but they could be so much better than they are. The Museum of Women, yes, that's where that one's going to be founded because Mitt Romney donated all his binders full of women, and that is going to they're going to turn it into a museum of women. If anybody wants to join, I don't know. There's probably a sign-up sheet somewhere. What museum would you build as the next Smithsonian, guys? Like, what do you think the next Smithsonian museum should be? So we have the Smithsonian Castle over here. We'll go see that in a second. We just stopped by natural history, American history, African American history. We have Asian art over here. And we have the castle. We've got the Air and Space Museum, the Museum of the American Indian. There is the Smithsonian National Zoo. There's the Smithsonian Portrait Gallery. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? The Museum of American Accomplishments. This is Quiet Castle. The Smithsonian Museum of Donald Trump. It's a good idea. Yeah, Joey Carter, I don't know what the status of Mitch McConnell is. That's a weird mystery. I can dig around. I don't know. It's a little bit. It's interesting. It's interesting. The state of Mitch McConnell might be at this point. I mean, I hope he's okay. I don't like when we turn politics into like people hoping for deaths and stuff like that. That's not right. But there's a question mark. What's going on with him? I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't think anybody. I mean, how many people in the world know what the status of Mitch McConnell is right now? Like, who knows? Seems like not many. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of these other museums as we walk through this creepy, dark forest here. Again, so much of the mall has been basically blocked off for a while because of the Great American State Fair, which sat here occupying things, well, for a while. Hopefully there are no giant beasts that will eat us here on our walk tonight. I'm being quiet for a second because I'm trying to read your comments here in the chat to get a feel for what you guys are saying. Smithsonian is the ultimate truth suppression. It's still a good collection of museums. Multiple things can be true at once. And I think, we got to be honest about that. That the Smithsonian can both be an incredible asset to the country, a great collection of museums that are still worth visiting, while also clearly having some leaders who are, let's say, like not up to the task right now. Meanwhile, they attack the actual people who create things, including jobs. Yeah, and whether they kind of believe it, whether they would say it explicitly or not, sometimes it's just implicit. Like I was researching the background of this director of the Smithsonian, and I don't think she's not some like hardcore, in the closet, like deep political activist. Like she's not like, it's not like you took somebody who's secretly like scheming politically somehow and put her in charge of a thing. And like, I think that's what's tough sometimes for people to grasp is there's nothing actually all that unusual about her. She has degrees from the Cal State University system, and she's worked her way up through various kinds of museum administration over time. She's not that unusual of a person in Washington, D.C. And that's what the issue is It's that Washington, D.C. is full of people like this that come from these academic backgrounds and have been in very insular communities their entire lives. And they don't even kind of realize that the things that they think, the things they believe, the issues they prioritize are profoundly and radically out of step with where the rest of the country is. And therefore, when you put her on the stand, she'll never admit that she thinks there's a problem because she doesn't think there's a problem. She doesn't even understand the notion that somebody would think there's a problem. Because when you live in Washington, D.C., for most of these folks that live here, it's the way they all just kind of think and operate. And, there was this push a few years ago to try to take more and more of the federal agencies and distribute them more broadly around the country. I don't know whether geographically, like in terms of clustering stuff here in DC, that would have been a bad idea. But it would have been a good idea from the standpoint that the little bubble that is Washington, D.C., the little bubble that is coastal academia, is profoundly out of step with where most Americans are. And it is very possible sometimes. I mean, we all experience this, whether we realize it or not. We all live in bubbles. We all live in bubbles and believe things that are the product of the environments we're around. We believe things that we don't realize are unusual. We have sentiments, proclivities that are unusual. And she's clearly, like, I saw somebody was calling her online a lunatic. Like, I don't know what the psychological definition of a lunatic is. I don't think she would think she's a lunatic, but I certainly could understand how people that listen to her testimony, like even good faith testimony, where she actually was bothering to answer questions, I think you could listen to her and think like, boy, that's a whack job. That's a wacky person who thinks very damaging things. It's very yellow tonight, isn't it? The Washington Monument. Why is it so yellow? Moniker, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by here. And Logan, good to see you as well. We got like a pretty good house here on the mods. All right, AOC comment here. You guys think AOC is going to be the president? I put that into the title tonight. I may do a whole other stream on that. I've been trying to hold off. Like, I don't want to get it too much into like 2028, who's going to be the president stuff until after at least the 2026 midterms. But everybody's talking about it. Everybody's talking about this rise of socialism in America. Like, movements win the presidency, not like an individual. Movements, people that are having movements win the presidency. And AOC is the forefront of a movement. I think that Zoran's a little more talented than she is at painting socialism in a positive light. But Logan doesn't think we'll have another president. Well, that would be an interesting thing. What's going to happen in the next couple of years, I would imagine. Common the Chaos thinks AOC is very pretty. Do you think Mitch McConnell is pretty? Gavin Newsom's a pretty guy. I think Marco Rubio has his charm. I think he's actually benefited from aging a little bit. I think he's prettier now than he was when he was younger. I think J.D. Vance is a little more lumberjack-like than pretty. Pete Buttigieg, I think you could say, is pretty. Rahm Emanuel, not so pretty, but I would trust some things in the hands of Rahm Emanuel. What do you guys like? Be honest with me. Be honest with me. Like, I know everybody's got their opinions. I don't want to know your opinions on who you want to be the president, although you can share that with me too. But who do you think is going to be the presidential nominee for each party in 2028? Like, put on your, like, we just want to be truly honest hat, I guess. People don't have hats like that. That's silly. Who would have a hat like that? Anyway, tell me who you honestly think is going to be the nominee for each of the two parties in 2028. You know, I'm out a little bit earlier than I often am for these late night streams. There's a lot more people out when you come out earlier. A lot of people like lurking off in the shadows. Okay, here's the Smithsonian Museum, National Museum of Asian Art. And you might think, like, why does the Smithsonian Museum have a National Museum of Asian Art? This is actually one of the oldest Smithsonian museums, National Museum of Asian Art, and it is part of the very early collections of the Smithsonian. Man, I'm planting something here. It smells good. I don't know what it is. It just smells pretty good. But some of the early art collections that were donated to the Smithsonian back in the 1850s. Big collection of Asian art. So, cool little museum here. One of the off the beaten path little museums here at the Smithsonian. Man, I don't know what that is. They planted, I don't know, I wish I knew plants better. Wish we had a plant museum, like a botanic garden somewhere. Okay. Let's see, what is this? This is our shared future. 250. This is the S. Dillon Ripley Center, the International Gallery here, which is a special exhibit gallery here at the Smithsonian. And then you got some gardens here that are all fenced off late at night. So, let's see. What else we got? Kamala still only at 1% in the primary. I would be really surprised if they, with all the energy, like everybody wants a socialist here in 2028. It'd be really weird if they ended up with Kamala Harris again. All right, and then this is the original Smithsonian castle. Man, it's dark. You can barely see it. There's the Natural History Museum over there. Oh, there we go. There's a good map. Okay, so there's the Museum of Natural History, Museum of American History. Then you have the African American History Museum. There's the Asian Art Museum. This is the Arts and Industries. Well, we'll get to the Arts and Industries building here in a second. There's also the African Art Museum, which sits kind of behind this. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get through and see that. And we'll go see the Hirshhorn Museum, the Air and Space Museum, and the American Indian Museum here in a second. If you haven't, by the way, dropped a like and a subscribe to the video, I appreciate if you would do that. Those likes help us here with YouTube. The subscribes help you guys know when we're on. Check our description for the link to our Discord. It's our 24/7 chat platform, our Duck Fund, and our Buy Me a Coffee link. So this is a pretty cool looking building during the day. It's pretty dark at night. It's like weirdly dark over here. Why is it so dark? Okay, there's the Arts and Industries building. Look at that. That's a pretty building also. It has a pretty little garden in front of it here. But this is like the original Smithsonian back when back when the Smithsonian was originally founded. Again, they never said that it had to be a museum, and so there was a lot of debate, like should it be a university? Should it be like a hospital? Like what should it be? And eventually they decided it should be a museum. Pretty dark at night. Yeah, well, some places it's darker at night than others. It's a rose garden. It smells like roses. What do they have here in the Arts and Industries building? Oh, voices and votes. Okay, this is the kind of stuff the Smithsonian does these days. Voices and votes exploring democracy across America. Yawn. Folk life programs. Solstice events, Family Day. It's just this like the Smithsonian's becoming like a hippie festival. Like, let's all hold hands and vote. That's the whole shtick of the Smithsonian these days. Like, I want to see like an exhibit on like how we built the atomic bomb. Like, really, like get into the science. Like, walk me through it in the most human way possible. How did we invent the most incredible scientific discoveries in human history? Like, how did we invent like non-stick cooking surfaces? That's a pretty cool American thing. Like, tell me about all the cool stuff that America invented and how we did it. Maybe I'm jaded from years of living in DC. But there are ways to affect change in the world, to have like a profound impact on our world other than voting and protesting. Like, you can be Steve Jobs if you want. You can invent Facebook from your dorm room. Like, you can start like the world's largest oil company. You can invent like any kind of new product. You do all kinds of stuff. All right, so I guess this is the back of the Arts and Industries building. So it's a little disconcerting when you start hearing like random people shouting in the dark. And you're walking through like a creepy, dark pathway. There's just like random people shouting. Does water makes you pee? Running water, yeah. Running water in like dark, spooky spaces. Man. I think it was the last time. I think it was the last time I peed my pants as a kid. It was on some field trip. We were walking through they wanted us to go experience walking through the woods on our own at night. I swear, I think that was the last time I ever peed my pants. Sometimes you get a little bit of running water, a little bit of dark, a little bit of nature spooking you. Wow, we've got a lot of sprinklers here. Still hard to believe the U.S. used to test atomic bombs just a few miles north of Vegas back in the 50s. Yeah, we did some things that we probably wouldn't do these days, back in the old days. Oh, geez. Okay, I took a sprinkler to the pant leg. That was a little too much wool, too much liquid running down the leg of my pants right now. Oh, anyway, okay, so there's the African Art Museum. I guess I should have known better than to walk directly into the line of fire here. Oh, yeah, the duck suit leg. But I'm drawn to water, you know, being a duck and all. Okay, so there's the African American Art, or the African Art Museum. It's not the African American Art Museum, it's the African Art Museum. All right, let's keep going. We've got a couple more museums to walk around the edges of, anyway. Wow, you know, water gets cold real fast. I guess it came out cold. They were sprinkling it with cold water, and then it like gets in your pant leg, and it's like, oh, all of a sudden you're cold. Oh, hey, that's where that bus exploded. If we walk down that tunnel, we could go see the remnants of the bus explosion. I bet they still haven't replaced the tiles in that tunnel. A museum of museums. That'd be kind of fun. You could have like little models of all the museums from around the country, because America has a lot of really good museums that aren't the Smithsonian. America's a big country. It's a fairly wealthy country. Like the Getty Museum in Los Angeles, that's a cool museum. You go there, you drive there, you park, you get on a little tram, it takes you up to the top of the mountain. You go look at art, and then you step out. After you look at the art, and then you watch the wildfires burning down the hills outside of Los Angeles. You go to the Met in New York. That's a pretty famous art museum. It's one of the greatest art museums in the world. You can wait in line for hours there at the Met in the rain. It's really fun. All right, this is the Hirshhorn Museum, which is a modern art museum, as you can see from these blobs. What do you think these are? Two-piece reclining figures. Oh, I get it. So that's like a headless person reclining. And this is, I guess this person is also headless. What is it with modern art and sculpting headless people? Hirshhorn Museum is it's a round museum. Let's see, there's like modern art. Modern art is so whack, says Quiet Castle. I mean, yeah, it's like a lot of it's weird. That's another museum that it feels like somebody, like, they're just kind of lazy in curating the museum. It's just, they could do better, is what I'm saying there at the Hirshhorn Museum. But they could probably put more interesting things in it. A museum of floors. Like just an empty tower. I mean, there are cities that have like entire towers, but there's not enough like office market to fill the towers anymore. You could do that in like St. Louis. You make a museum of floors. Just have all a bunch of empty floors. Because you have to have. Wow. Goodness gracious, that guy is loud. Why is he yelling at us? I don't know what this giant piece of art is supposed to be either. This is, oh, it's like a stealth bomber. Norman Patterson, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by here on Land Speculation on YouTube. Oh, it changes colors. Well, that's fun. And then there's this wall of water. So, okay, it went from red to yellow to silver. It does. It seems oddly like air and spacey, I guess. Yes, that's the point. Why are they yelling at us? Very strange smells in DC tonight. Some good, some not so good. There was a guy that was just smoking a blunt in the street earlier. So fun. Look, you get the Capitol and you get parking garage. A museum of gangsters. I think a museum of just like cool people, like, or just like interesting people, because I don't think we want to render positive judgment about people like Al Capone, but just like interesting people. I guess that's kind of what the portrait gallery is. There's just room after room after room of portraits of interesting historic Americans. Like, who's that guy that he was going to go out, and so he decided to build the Killdozer? Do you guys know the story of the Killdozer guy? Like, that's a hell of a story. He spent years building a seemingly impenetrable bulldozer vehicle that he could just go plow over his entire town as his last act of living. It's an interesting person in American history. You know, that's the thing about America is one way or the other, you get a chance to do interesting things with your life. You write a book, you can, you know, invent something, or you can do that. All right, this is the Air and Space Museum, which has a fair bit of air and space in it. Look at that. Big, tall, very airy, very spacey. Oh, look, it's like a big, in front of a big Northwest plane, I think. Yeah, it's like a Northwest jumbo jet. It's a big Rolls-Royce engine. Marvin Heemeyer, was that his name? Local town politics. Interesting. Like, Kennesaw Mountain Landis is an interesting person. He was the very first baseball commissioner. What a cool name that is. Kennesaw Mountain Landis. That's a serious, legit name. There was a guy named Henry Height who was 8 feet 2 inches tall, and his name was Henry Height. Imagine that. That's an interesting figure in American history. Museum of Famous Bears. Who's like a really... How did the Chicago Cubs decide that blue was the color of bears? I don't know that full story. I would like to know that full story. That's something the Smithsonian should teach me about this country. Okay, here we have more air and space. I can't tell what's going on in that box of air and space. The Air and Space Museum is one of the most popular Smithsonian museums. Usually you need to have a entry reservation in order to get in. It's still free. You just gotta have a reservation time. You get it online. Big museum. There was a worker with the last name Hershey who fell into a giant vat of chocolate at a Hershey plant and died. And then they named the plant after him. That wouldn't make any sense, would it? Jeanette prefers small museums. They just opened a couple of new cool museums in DC. The new National Geographic Museum is now open. That apparently is pretty cool. They just opened the Undercroft under the Lincoln Memorial, which we'll have to do a stream at some point. They're putting up a little memorial by the Lincoln Memorial right now with the names of 41 million U.S. service members who have served in history. That's an interesting thing as well. But the thing about a city of, I mean, we say they're free museums. They're free to visit. Somebody's paying for them. We're all paying for them. So you might as well get your money's worth. But the thing about a city of free museums to visit is a big museum can be a small museum. You step in for a few minutes, you see whatever you want, and you step out. You're done. There is the Museum of the Bible in DC. There is the Spy Museum. There, of course, is the Holocaust Museum. There's the Museum of, is it like Women and the Arts? Lots of different small modern art museums. There's the American Dream Center that recently opened up. All right, and I think this is the final Smithsonian Museum. Down here, anyway. We're not going up to the zoo. Smithsonian does have a zoo. But this is the Smithsonian Museum of the American Indian. Which has now been renamed the Smithsonian Museum of the American Guardian. Museum of Torture in Houston, Texas. Is it like an interactive museum? Because I visited the Voodoo Museum in New Orleans when I was a kid. And I still haven't gotten all the needles out. The Shassin Melodic? The letters are jumbling together. Welcome to Land Speculation live on YouTube. I don't know how I can recap an hour's worth of content in one sentence. Oh, this is like, man, see, it's dark out. When it's dark out, you miss some of the detail. Anyway, it's a cool looking overhang here at the Smithsonian Museum of the American Indian. And then, let's see what we got here. I don't know what they do here. They got rid of the filters, Jeanette. Yeah, we can't do the filters anymore. It's a shame. Sometimes they did make things easier to see. So it's a little strange having these like speakers off in the woods. Here at the Smithsonian Museum of the American Indian. I do always feel tempted to walk laps, run laps. I'm really dizzy though. Man. Somebody in there? They stopped. I think they're on to us. We gotta go. I think it's copyrighted. I don't know. I don't know, guys. I don't know if you guys noticed when we walked back there were a couple of National Guard troops camped out there. But the second they realized we were coming, they got out of there. They were like, I think is, why is this water bubbling? That's a little unsettling. There's no one around now, but there were. I know I didn't imagine it. Yeah, the ring around the neck, you gotta like tread carefully with the ring around the neck. Sometimes that's like a widow. They can mean different things, you know. Usually when people like they've got a ring, they don't feel like they should be putting it on their finger, but they want to keep it close to their heart. Would be my suggestion for the neck. Oh, it's this. Do you think they make the Soylent Green there at the American Indian Museum? That was weird how the water was bubbling. Oh my goodness! The National Mall. I have so missed you. I've so missed you being off limits for as long as you were. I miss the feel of crunchy pebbles underneath my feet and large swaths of grass roped off for some reason. Man, they are still tearing apart that state fair. What is going on there? Look at that. It's the remnants of the state fair. And the Capitol building is this way. Crunchy Pebbles? Crunchy Pebbles? Is it Toasty Pebbles? There is some kind of Pebbles breakfast cereal. I don't know if I've ever had it. I stopped eating as much breakfast cereal once I realized that there's kind of no redeeming purpose to it. We're gonna have to go check out the reflecting pool again because I've heard that's, well, of course it's empty again. And the contract for the reflecting pool contractor runs until 2027. So it seems like it could be empty for a long time while they figure out what to do with it. So I don't know what it looks like right now. I mean, I assume it just looks like an empty pool, but we'll find out. So we did not include in our roundup through the Smithsonian museums these two final things that seem like Smithsonian museums, but in fact are not. The National Gallery of Art is in fact an entirely different institution from the Smithsonian, if jurisdictional politics matter to you. The Smithsonian National Gallery of Art has its famous West Wing, which is old, its East Wing, which is relatively new, and its Sculpture Gallery, which is over on the other side of this building. The East Wing here opened in 1979 and is full of, well, actually not very full of, it's kind of an empty building, but it has modern art in it. Modern art here in the East Wing of the National Gallery. A lot of triangles here in this building. It's closed now. And then the West Wing over here is more traditional art. What did she say? What is happening with the ballroom? Well, that's at the White House. That's a different West Wing. This is the West Wing of the National Gallery of Art. The West Wing of the White House is where the Oval Office is located. The East Wing of the White House is where the new ballroom is being constructed. I don't know. Still looks like a big construction site. Very heavily blocked off. Lots of fencing. Giant double-stack trailers. You can't access anywhere close to it. And it looks like crap. So I don't know what the status of it is. I assume they're building something, or something's in progress, or who knows. What do they do here? Oh, they... What on earth did they build? This is all boarded up. Oh, that's weird. These are like... This is normally like a giant glass pyramid over here. But they've got it all boarded up. I think it would be much harder to do a Louvre-style heist at this art museum than at the Louvre. This is normally a fountain. Water goes down this triangular hillside into the under area down there, which is like a cafeteria. There's like an underground moving sidewalk thing that's very cool that moves between the West Wing over here and the East Wing over here. The West Wing is full of, well, it's really like a great tour of the history of art. It's one of the best and most balanced collections anywhere in the world. If you want to understand like art from Renaissance Italy, you want to understand art from like the old Dutch masters, you want to understand Impressionism, Great Impressionist collection, you want to understand like British art from the 1800s, you understand American art, great sculpture collection. You got a little moving sidewalk underground, you pop over here and then you go see all the weird stuff, all the weird modern stuff over here. It's very good. It's probably better than the Smithsonian's. This is my working theory, that the administrators of the National Gallery of Art have their crap together more than the Smithsonian people do, but I don't know that for a fact. Dutch Masters, is that a cigar? I think Cuban Masters? I don't know. Do the Dutch do cigars? Maybe they do. I've seen them rolling the Cuban cigars. That's pretty fun. You get on to Little Havana, Miami. Little cigar shops. I reached for a cup of coffee this morning, says Jerry Carter. Almost grabbed a live snake sitting on my kitchen counter. Was it like coiled up like a coffee cup? Because some people have those coffee cups that look like snakes. You could barter with the snake or negotiate with it. It's like, if you stay coiled up, I'll pour my coffee in you, and then we can help each other out here. Dutch masters that said one cut off his ears. Are you sure you're not thinking of Vincent van Gogh, who was French? Van Gogh wanted to emulate the Dutch masters, but by then the world was moving on. And so his brother told him, "Get with the program, Vincent. You can't be painting like Rembrandt anymore. You got to get it together and paint like a progressive impressionist." And Van Gogh proceeded to uproot the entire art world. Painted with a reckless abandon for a few years. Died in his 30s because he was a little bit off his rocker. Did you get it out of your house, Sherry? Sounds like it maybe is still in your kitchen. Yeah, you be careful. Like, if you overlay the map of places where there are snakes and places where there are bears, what's left? Like, what's not where there are snakes and bears that also still has like interesting outdoor territory? What would people recommend? Orange cat. Snakes hate orange cats. Okay. Fair enough. The Arctic Circle. I actually would really like probably the Antarctic. Maybe, actually, no, the Arctic would be interesting too. I think they'd both be interesting. How do you do that? Can I just like drive up to the northern tip of Alaska and then flag down a boat and just tell them, like, can you just drive me around? I want to see some stuff. There are bears in the Arctic Circle. I guess, well, polar bears. I guess polar bears operate in the Arctic Circle, I guess. I don't think polar bears are not in the Antarctic, though, are they? I don't think so. Antarctic is pretty unforgiving. It's a big chunk of land down there. That Antarctic thing. Are we pro-Iran war? Well, we've done many a stream digging deeply into the Iran war. And generally what we tend to dig into when it comes to the Iran war is the stuff that we can actually learn by researching on the ground in Iran. I spent a lot of time going through various X accounts and the Arab News, Iranian state propaganda agency to figure out what's really going on. It's not really a question of whether I'm pro-Iran war or not, so much as understanding what's really happening when it comes to the Iran war. A little terrified to go see if there are rats. Extremely very heavy rat territory. Monica dislikes all war. I need to remember to carry a quarter around so I can buy some of this Chinese state propaganda here. Quarters only. Oh wait, no, it's open. Dear customer, please don't take more than one newspaper, as I have to pay for them. Should we, I wonder who runs this. All right, now we're gonna be on some list, but China Daily is the official state propaganda newspaper of the Chinese Communist Party. So I might give this a little read. It says it costs 25 cents. It was just open though. So we'll find out what's up. Only cold noodles can beat major heat. See, China's another place like Europe that doesn't really do air conditioning. And in fact, they like aggressively don't do air conditioning at all, and they argue very vehemently against it because they believe if you have air conditioning, you'll catch cold, and it's bad for you. And the way to deal with air conditioning, the way to deal with hot weather, which in China gets very, very, very hot in the summertime, is to drink hot tea. Because if you drink hot tea, somehow like your body gets warmer and therefore it causes the air to seem cooler, or it's like there's some kind of old wives' tale thing that governs what you're supposed to eat in China when it's hot out. But air conditioning is kind of verboten. It's a little crazy to me that we have a box of literal CCP propaganda, like literally right on the corner of Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. It just seemed like if we're not... What the hell? What on earth was that? Is that a mouse? Or a rat making that noise? That scared the pants off me. Literally. I have no pants on. What was I saying? It does seem like we're getting pretty close to the period where it's going to be kind of crazy that we used to fight wars with actual people. One of our military is up to the task of 21st century warfare. If it's not, it's going to be an interesting situation. Did you guys hear that squeaking? That was crazy squeaking. We're out a little bit early for the rats tonight. All right, guys. If you haven't dropped a like or subscribed to the video, please do that. Those likes help us out with YouTube. The subscribe something you guys know when we're on. Check our description for links to our Discord, our Duck Fund, and our sister channel, Land Ducks International. Anybody's free to join our Discord if you want to chat or share your own thoughts and communicate with us and our mods and all that kind of stuff. Please feel free. The Duck Fund is our Buy Me a Coffee link if you want to help support the stream, and the sister channel, Land Ducks International, you should also subscribe to, because that's our raw, authentic, on-the-ground footage from various travels around the world. So, who's a winner? Who's our winner tonight? Yeah. Man, our mods are all over it. Chosen Melodic. Congratulations on your victory. That's a pretty cool thing that you've now won 3 cents. If you want to claim your 3 cents, email me, landspeculation@gmail.com. You won 3 cents. Now, if you want to claim your 3 cents, you're going to have to mail me a pre-stamped envelope, and then I'll send it back to you with 3 cents in it. It's not really worth it to you financially, probably, because it's going to cost you the cost of 2 stamps to get 3 cents back. But, you know, nobody's taken me up on it yet, but someday somebody will. But congratulations. Very good job. Double it and give it to the next person. Oh, we should start, like, aggregating it. That's an interesting thought. If it's like paying it forward. So we just grow the jackpot. It's like the Powerball. That's interesting. See, we pick up new traditions every day. Okay, we'll start tonight. Tomorrow's winner, or whenever we stream next, will get 6 cents for winning. 6 cents the next time. All right. I don't know, what should we do the next time? I felt like we needed to do some Smithsonian stuff tonight, but I do want to do a stream. I have like a whole bunch of ideas for streams. But if you guys have thoughts, ideas, questions, topics, like, we're always happy to talk about basically anything and incorporate your perspectives. So let me know. Let me know what you want us to talk about. You can let me know here in the chat. You can let me know on the Discord. You can send me an email, landspeculation@gmail.com. All right. Well, thanks to our mods. We got Jeanette, Quiet, and Moniker here tonight. Really appreciate everything they do here on behalf of the channel. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us here. Looks like we left some things on the table, so much more to pick up on when we pick it all back up. You want a West Wing, a tour of the inside of the West Wing? I'm going to call some people about that. Might be possible, maybe. Might take a little bit of prep. Someday. We did upload a video from inside the Oval Office in the other channel. So if you have not subscribed to Land Ducks International, I'm getting the infrastructure figured out once more to do some more indoor deep dives. So I might dig into some of these topics in a more analytical way in the future. So Iran war, the rise of the Red Dawn left. We'll talk about Waco. It's been a long time since Waco, but I have some thoughts. Talk more about China. A lot going on in China these days. People aren't really paying attention. Thanks for the ducks, Nightbot. Appreciate it. And thanks to all you guys for hanging out with us. I appreciate it. All right, guys. Don't be strangers. We'll be back. This is Land. That ain't just speculation, and for now, I hope you all have a good night.